The Texas Longhorns are facing the undefeated TCU Horned Frogs in Austin on Saturday night. How is the TCU offense dominating? Why is their defense underperforming? And most importantly, can the Longhorns hand TCU their first loss? After the show, make sure to head over to Inside Texas. The latest recruiting news, pre- and post-game analysis, and in-depth coverage on your favorite team dropping daily. Subscribe to InsideTexas.com today. Link in the description. Texas controls their own destiny in the hunt for a Big 12 championship, but a surging TCU team stands in their way. Can the Longhorns do what it takes to pull off the big win? Without further ado, let's get into it. Sonny Dykes is off to an amazing start in year one. Sonny was able to keep some key offensive pieces in place, and he brought Garrett Riley along to run the offense, and they're getting results right out of the gate. TCU went from 34th in total offense last year to 8th in the nation this season. Dykes originally chose Chandler Morris for the starting gig, but he went down in their first game of the year. Max Duggan got his chance to take back control of the team he had led for several years, and he hasn't looked back since. Duggan is playing all-around good football, but his passing ability has taken a huge leap this year. He's thrown 24 touchdowns for 2,400 yards for 9.9 yards per attempt. He's the highest ranked quarterback in all of those categories. He's 4th in overall attempts, so it's not like he's just spamming passes to artificially inflate his numbers. Most importantly, he only has 2 interceptions, and he's ranked 10th in turnover-worthy play percentage. He's been smart with the ball. He's been dropping dimes deep. He's 3rd in deep passing attempts at 41, completing 23 for a league-high 56%. 14 of his touchdowns have come from passes over 20 yards, doubling the next quarterback who has 7. And he can still do damage in that intermediate range, especially against zone coverage, ranking 4th in the league for completion percentage at 63%. With 4 touchdowns, and he hits that range on 23% of his targets. But the short passing game is where Duggan comes back to earth, ranking 9th of 11 Big 12 quarterbacks, completing just 65% of his passes under 9 yards, and his only 2 interceptions have come from this range. He's a running quarterback that matured into a pocket passer, and now he'll get through his reads before he takes off. But that running is still a major element of his game. Max is a tough downhill runner, and this style often makes people overlook how fast he actually is. Duggan has track speed, running a 22.02 200 meter in high school. Of course, he can extend plays and scramble when nothing is there, but Dykes utilizes several designed runs per game. TCU likes a quarterback draw in short yardage situations like 2nd and 3rd or near the goal line, but the classic zone read pull is on the table as well. It's hard not to respect Duggan's play style. He's tough as hell, and now he's an even more skilled passer. But to have all that downfield success, you need some threats at receiver, and TCU has the best receiving room in the entire Big 12. Let's start with the 6'4", 215-pound outside receiver Quentin Johnston. He's a rare combination of size, speed, and ball skills, and that all equates to a first-round draft pick. Johnston is the most crucial component of the TCU offense, leading the team with 65 targets on the year, pulling in 65% of those. Riley utilizes him everywhere on the field. Deep shots, middle of the field balls between the 2nd and 3rd level, quick slants, and behind the line screens. Due to this, Johnston is TCU's most targeted receiver at every level of the field. He has 650 yards on the season, averaging 15.5 yards per grab. And don't let that size fool you. He's not a possession receiver. He leads the league in forced missed tackles, and he's 3rd in yards after catch per reception. Quentin Johnston is a special player, and the only issue limiting his game right now is the nagging ankle injury he's been nursing the past few weeks. It forced him out of the Texas Tech game in their latest matchup. The second most utilized receiver is slot Darius Davis with 38 targets. The 5th-year senior has a 74% catch rate for 385 yards and 5 touchdowns. Davis is all about speed as a top sprinter out of high school, and he's been clocked at over 23 miles per hour on a run this season. He leads the league in yards after catch per reception, and Dykes makes an emphasis to get him the ball quickly, with over 70% of his targets coming under 9 yards or behind the line. Get the ball in his hands on short routes, screens, or jet motions, and let him go to work. The slot opposite Darius Davis is the 5'10", 190-pound Tay Barber. He has 32 targets on the year, and he's that reliable middle of the field slot you can turn to make a play on key downs with a 72% catch rate. He's explosive and racks up yards with the third highest yards per reception in the Big 12, pulling in 19.5 yards per catch. He's most targeted in that intermediate range, but he's also TCU's number 2 deep threat, able to land the big score with all 3 of his touchdowns coming from that plus 20-yard range. The least targeted receiver is the big 6'5", 215-pound outside receiver and junior Savion Williams. He only has 23 targets on the year, but he comes in clutch several times per game. Williams caught 78% of his passes for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. The moment you forget about him being on the field is exactly when he will make that big catch. And beyond receptions, that large size makes him a capable blocker for the faster slots on screens. Riley often runs 10 personnel with 4 receivers on the field. You have 2 really big outside receivers in Quentin Johnston and Savion Williams. And then on the inside, you have 2 dangerous slots in Darius Davis and Tay Barber. But when they want that even bigger personnel set, they can bring in the 6'5", 245-pound Jacorius Spivey to act as a big slot receiver. But he only has 8 targets on the year. Their true tight end is Texas transfer Jared Wiley, and we already know how big he is at 6'7", 255 pounds. Wiley has 15 targets with 12 catches for an 80% reception rate for 136 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's currently the highest graded tight end in the Big 12. It's a hell of a room they've got, and it'll put stress on any secondary in the country. The TCU passing game has been a crucial part of their success, and they've been able to do it with a fairly average pass-blocking offensive line. The offensive line is responsible for 9 sacks for the second most in the league, and they're 57th in the nation for sack rate at 5.2%. But they do have a low amount of total pressures. So factoring in sacks, hurries, and hits, the TCU O-line is ranked 6th overall in pass blocking efficiency in the Big 12. And they have some productive players. Senior left guard Steve Avila is the 2nd-ranked pass blocker, and senior center Alon Ali is ranked 7th. Their final player in the top 25 is senior right guard John Lands. Once you see Duggan slinging it all over the field, it's easy to get hyper-fixated on the passing side of the offense. But Dykes and Riley still believe in the run. At this point, TCU actually runs about 10 times more per game. And the offensive line does a good job there. They're 36th in the nation for average line yards, with all starters in the top 25. Left tackle Brandon Coleman is the best run blocker in the league. Right tackle Andrew Coker is 13th. Left guard Steve Avila is 15th, center Alon Ali is 20th, and right guard John Lance is 21st. Due to the success of the offensive line, the TCU backs are making a ton of plays. Starter Kendre Miller is having a great year, leading the league in yards per attempt at 6.5 yards per carry. He's 2nd in touchdowns with 12, and he's also 2nd in yards with 1,003. Miller is showing out with his versatile style. He can make quick cuts for the inside runs. He has the burst to get to the edge on outside zone, and he doesn't go down easy, ranking 4th in yards after contact per attempt. If Miller sees daylight, he'll take off, ranking 1st in runs over 15 yards. And don't lose him in the pass game on those rail routes either. Miller has played his way into the NFL this season. But that's not all. Their number 2 back, Amari DiMarcado, has been an excellent compliment. He has the 6th highest yards per attempt, picking up 5.9 yards per touch. And he can pick up yards after contact, ranking 5th, and has the 2nd highest breakaway percentage. Besides Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, this is the best 2-back tandem in the Big 12. TCU currently ranks 12th in the nation for rushing yards per game. The Texas run defense had yet another good performance, holding Kansas State 70 yards under their rushing average. We are now ranked 28th in opponent rushing yards per game. TCU is still the most productive rushing offense we've faced all season, including Alabama. But OU and Kansas State are both directly behind them, and we managed to perform well in those games. Like Martinez last week, Duggan is a rushing threat, so corral him on the draws and the zone reads. But overall, this is a really good run-stopping unit, and if we continue this trend, we should have some success once again. On the flip side, the secondary faces their biggest test. The corners will have to face 2 large outside receivers. Quentin Johnston is the most pressing threat, and I've yet to see a corner lock him down all season. Ryan Watts is the only one with the size to do it, but Johnston's speed is hard to keep up with. That leaves the 5'10" Deshaun Jameson to defend the 6'5" Savion Williams. Technique will have to be on point for both corners, but you can probably get away with some pushing and shoving on such big body receivers. Nickels and safeties have to worry about the super fast Darius Davis cutting up the field behind the line, while keeping an eye out for Tay Barber over the middle. TCU is especially dangerous when facing zone coverage. Receivers are really good at finding that empty space, and Duggan is good at putting it on them. Linebackers and safeties can't keep letting receivers get wide open in the middle of the field. And when you do drop back deep, be ready for Duggan to take off into that voided space. The TCU offense has had some issues with slow starts in several games, but they have always made the proper adjustments and found a way to win. The Texas defense will need to be ready for a four-quarter battle. If the Texas offense leaves them out to dry in the second half like they so often do, they have to be prepared to make those big plays at key moments down the stretch. This is a really effective TCU offense, and that's the reason they still have that perfect record. But on the other side of the ball, the Horned Frogs are still trying to find a way to make things work in year one. But before we hit the defense, you need to check out Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a US-based daily fantasy sports app where you can make college football player projections all season long. How does it work? You select 2 to 5 players and choose more or less on their projections. It could be passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, and more. And if those players score more or less than their Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Just hop on the Prize Picks app or website, go to the college football tab, and check out the player projections. It's a smooth process where you can make your entries in 60 seconds or less with fast withdrawals. It's that easy. As a first-time depositor, use promo code TexasHomer, and you will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. That's double your money up to $100 for your first time. So sign up for Prize Picks, use promo code TexasHomer at sign up, and add even more excitement to your game day. Link in the description. TCU has been known for their defense due to the innovative 4-2-5 scheme Gary Patterson employed. Dykes hired Tulsa's Joe Gillespie as the defensive coordinator. By advanced metrics, Tulsa has had a top 50 defense every year since he got the job. Gillespie is yet another coordinator running the 3-3-3 defense Iowa State created. But as expected early in Gillespie's tenure, the defense is having some trouble adjusting. The rushing defense is 73rd in the nation for yards per game, allowing 154 yards on the ground per contest. TCU has a young but talented freshman starting at nose in Dominic Williams. He's currently the 16th graded run-stopping interior defensive lineman out of 37 players. On the edge, Terrell Cooper is more of their traditional strong side end, built for run-stopping, and he's currently ranked 4th. The more pass-rushing focused edge, Dylan Horton, is ranked 13th. The linebackers struggle in the run game, with their best run stopper being the 11th ranked middle linebacker, Jamoy Hodge. Weak side linebacker Johnny Hodges is 26th, followed by Sam linebacker D. Winters, ranked 31st out of 32 run-stopping linebackers. That's a tough go because linebackers are crucial against the run and 3-3 looks. The secondary has better performance with several players in the top half. But first, the TCU secondary is constantly rotating players in and out. Sometimes it's due to an injury, other times it's just their philosophy. In run-stopping, rotational free safety Abe Kamara is 10th. Rotational free safety Nnamdi Obiizor is 12th. Nickel Millard Bradford is 14th. Starting strong safety Mark Perry is 21st. And starting field quarter Josh Newton is 25th. In totality, the run defense lacks productive players, with only one top 5 run defender at their position on the entire defense. And that's why they're 5th in the league for giving up explosive runs. In the past game, teams have had consistent success through the air, and it starts with the pass rush. On the interior defensive line, their best pass rusher is second-string nose Tymon Mitchell, with 2 sacks and 12 total pressures, tied for 3rd. Starting nose Dominic Williams is 19th with 7 total pressures, 2 of which are sacks. On the edge, the only top half pass rusher is Dylan Horton, graded 10th. Notching 3 sacks and 31 total pressures. On the second level, Sam linebacker D. Winters can drop down as a 4th rusher on passing downs, and he's been an absolute menace with 6.5 sacks and 18 total pressures. Unfortunately, Winters went out in the second half versus Tech for a targeting call, but they are appealing. They send weak side linebacker Johnny Hodges a good amount as well, but he hasn't been effective, ranking 16th of 18 linebackers. The secondary doesn't qualify for the minimum pass rush attempts since they are so rarely sent. In coverage, the TCU defense has had trouble locking teams down, ranking 94th in the nation for opponent passing yards per game, giving up an average of 255 yards through the air. They're struggling there, and that's evident by TCU giving up the most explosive pass plays in the entire Big 12. There's only one linebacker performing well in coverage, and that's weak side linebacker Johnny Hodges, ranked 3rd. The other two linebackers, middle linebacker Jamoy Hodge is ranked 22nd, and strong side linebacker D. Winters ranks 28th of 31 coverage linebackers. Since the TCU secondary rotates so much, I'm going to determine the starters by who played the first snaps in their most recent game versus Tech. The individual players are actually doing a good job, but the secondary requires experience in the scheme and chemistry. Gillespie rotates so much, I don't know how you could have consistent communication or camaraderie on the back end. You see them yelling at each other to move right before the snap or running to their assignment. It's especially pronounced against a tempo team like Tech. In coverage, starting free safety Bud Clark ranks 8th. Starting field corner Josh Newton ranks 9th. Starting nickel Millard Bradford ranks 12th. Rotational free safety Abe Kamara ranks 16th. And starting boundary corner Travius Hodges-Tomlinson ranks 18th. The consistent starter who struggles in coverage is actually strong safety Mark Perry, ranking 50th in pass coverage. As you can see, the TCU defense is still trying to put things together on that side of the ball, and it shows in their performance. The Horned Frogs are 72nd in the nation in opponent points per game, 94th in passing defense, and 73rd in rushing defense. But it's still super early, so give Gillespie some time to get things developed, especially in a new scheme. The keys for the Texas offense isn't anything shocking. The run game is the same plan you have against these Iowa State-style defenses. They play with light personnel, 3 linebackers and 5 defensive backs, line up in heavy sets like 12 or 13 personnel, generate more gaps, and pull a lead blocker into the hole. Just like Iowa State and Kansas State, pound the ball and wear on them. Bijan or Roschon always find a way to make some big plays. Occasionally change the pace with some Keelan outside runs to keep them from crowding the box. We'll have our opportunities in the pass game as well. This is Ewer's 5th time playing against this structure, so he should be more comfortable. The 3-3-3 likes balance for those 3 high safety looks. Make sure to be unbalanced by overloading one side like a trips formation, for example, and you can throw a wrench into their plans. Get Quinn rolling early with some short comfort throws to Sanders and Whittington. Keep TCU on their toes with a few Worthy shots to make sure they're defending the field vertically. If we aren't connecting with Worthy deep, then hit him short for yards after the catch or in the end zone on those short corner routes we saw versus Kansas State. Focus on the late crossers or middle of the field chunk plays to Whittington or Sanders to make consistent passing gains with a healthy dose of shallow routes and RPOs. But really, it's not about the players for the keys to the game. It's on Sark. We finally got the can't win a road game or against a ranked team monkey off of our back, but we still came minutes away from blowing yet another second half lead. Our offense stalling in the second half is especially vulnerable against this TCU team. First, passing teams can catch up much quicker than a run-focused team. Second, TCU has proven time and time again that they can make a comeback. A stalling second-half team in Texas versus a good second-half team in TCU will result in a loss if we don't keep our foot on the gas. On the flip side, if we play to our ability for 4 quarters, then we'll knock off a top 5 team in the country. Texas controls their destiny from here on out, and winning these last 3 games guarantees us a spot in the Big 12 championship. Is this the year the team can turn the corner and perform when the pressure is on? We will find out this Saturday when TCU comes to Austin. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, welcome.